very special episode of the Yahowah blog called Betraying Israel. This is episode 1. We'll produce several of these over the next few days. Every aspect of what you're going to hear now is part of an essay that I have written over the last couple of weeks regarding Donald Trump's betrayal of Israel. This is not something that is new to me, but something that I have known for a very long time. I knew that the next president of the United States would be the one who fulfilled the prophecies in Yahowah 17 and 18. And those prophecies, which I have dissected in every imaginable way, and I'm the first to be able to explain them cogently to the children of Israel, to Israelis, and to Yehudim. They speak of a time that is fast approaching. It is a time that we find that the government out of Damascus was predicted to fall, which is precisely what happened not many months ago with the rise of the Islamic State taking control of Syria. And while that was predicted 2,700 years ago, the prophecy goes on to say that much of the cities of Syria will be left as twisted mounds of rubble. And so we're going to continue to see the destruction of Syria. And that ultimately this leads to Islamic jihadists killing Islamic jihadists. And that is precisely what we have seen with the Jolani Islamic State militants off killing and murdering thousands of Alawites and also some Christians, and now they're attacking both Druze and Kurds. So we were told that we should expect a terrorist war zone in Syria, which would be the prelude to the fulfillment of this prophecy. It goes on to say that after a while, the terrorists in Syria and in Jordan will run out of opposing Muslims to kill, at which point they will turn their venom on Israel. And that coterminous with that, there will be the Shabuah harvest. And the Shabuah harvest is the next of the Moed Mikre to be fulfilled. It is going to happen on the 22nd of May in 2026. We know this date because Shabuah means 7, and that is 7 years prior to the return of Dod, the Messiah of Yisrael, the King of Yisrael, with Yahowah on Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, which is 2033. So 7 years shy of 2033 is 2026. It is the harvest of sevens. And therefore, what Yahowah, Isaiah, foretold is that coterminous with, or just prior to, the celebration of the Shabuah harvest, there will be the thinning of Israel at the waist. And this thinning of the Israel at the waist speaks of the same treaty being imposed upon Israel that Gabriel, which is Dod, God's most capable and competent man, told Daniel about 700 years before he came to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, providing the exact day that he would arrive in Israel to complete his obligation, is one that he volunteered to fulfill, being the Passover lamb. And so we know that this is that same treaty. And this treaty, according to Yahowah, thins Israel at the waist. If you look at the lands that will be afforded to the Fakistinians, there is no such thing as a Palestinian. So let's just be clear on our terminology. Palestine is a ploy, and it's a devastating ploy because the name Palestine was conjured up for the specific purpose of perpetrating genocide against Jews and obliterating Israel. To say Palestine is to say that I want to exterminate Jews and I want to extinguish the state of Israel. That is its sole purpose, because there are no people known as Palestinians. And this myth, this horrible, dark name, was conjured up first by Hadrian when he was pummeling Jews at what would become the beginning of the diaspora. And it has taken root now and been picked up as a result of the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which is a terrorist group, which was started by Yasser Arafat. And the sole purpose of that name in 1968 was to be applied to Muslims such that people would begin to think that there were Palestinians who had a homeland named Palestine and that Jews somehow robbed them of their land, when in fact Israel belongs to the Jews. It's always belonged to the Jews. It is the Jewish homeland that God himself gave to his people. And they have occupied that homeland, including Jerusalem, for 3,000 years. It is Jerusalem is the city of Daud. And so it is this story that Yahowah picks up, and he says that this terrorist state will be carved out of Israel, where majority of Israelis live, making Israel indefensible, because that Fakistinian state now will dissect Israel at the place such that Israel will be only a few miles wide at her waist, where 70% of Jews live. This is not Israel's doing, it's Donald Trump's doing. And we know this because the prophet Yahowah in the 18th chapter provided some 50 very poignant clues as to the nature of the country that perpetrated this on Israel. And it's always been a challenge to explain how it is that the country that is viewed by most as Israel's best ally in the world is the one that turns on Israel. But now you know, and we're going to discuss how that has come to be with Donald Trump. But Yahowah is very clear. The betrayal of Israel is by the United States of America, and that it is a combination of Israel being sold out, betrayed to, in Neville Chamberlain fashion, to give land that does not belong to America to the Muslims, who are the closest that we will ever find to the Nazis of World War II. And when Neville Chamberlain gave the high ground of Czechoslovakia to the Nazis to appease Adolf Hitler, all it did was ignite World War II. And we're going to see exactly the same thing when Donald Trump tries to appease Muslims by giving them a terrorist state carved out of Israel, a country that is not his to give. We're going to see the beginning of World War III. And this is what the prophet spoke of. He said that as a result of this act, there would be such a influx of terrorists that there'd be no way to stop them. They will come in a flood. It's interesting that the test for this strategy was called Al-Aqsa's flood by the terrorist group Hamas, which is simply a symptom for Islam. So this is what the prophet predicted. He said that it would happen on or before the 22nd of May of 2026, 12 months from now. He said that it would be America that would perpetrate it, not only by betraying Israel, but also by selling Israel's enemies the weapons that would be wielded against the country, that it would lead to an invasion of terrorists, the likes of which the world has never seen previously. Yoel also speaks of this. He calls it the greatest calamity in the history of the Jewish people, which means that the devastation that will be perpetrated by these Muslims will be between 100 and 1,000 times greater than October 7th, and the cost in Jewish lives are going to be worse than the Holocaust. So when I tell you that Israel has been betrayed by Donald Trump and the United States of America, and I will explain the reasons for that as we go through these essays, I want you to know it's with a very, very heavy heart. I would like this not to be so. But Yahowah is 100% accurate in his prophecies. When he inspires a prophet to write something, God has seen our future in our past and has committed it to writing. So what he discloses is actually future history. God is not causing this to happen. God, whose name is Yahowah, is simply reporting what does happen. And so we knew that this would happen. We knew that the betrayal would come at this time by the United States. Therefore, the moment Donald Trump was elected as president, that day I went on the air and I proclaimed for all to hear that Donald Trump is the next Neville Chamberlain and that his Czechoslovakia will be Israel. And at that time, no one gave it any heed outside of those who are part of the covenant family, who have read the books of Yahowah. On to the Yahowah website, I would invite you to do so and read my amplified translations from the oldest extant sources, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the commentary that I have written, because there are thousands and thousands of profound insights derived from them, delivered to God's people, all free of charge. Every book is available in its entirety for free. We ask nothing from you. We don't accept donations, and you pay nothing to read those books. But they will explain exactly who God is, what he is offering, what he expects in return. And in those books and in the blogs that I have done for many years now, I've done far more than 10,000 hours of talk radio, audio blogs, and now this Yahowah blog, this video blog. So I'm not new to this. I've been doing this for a long time. I have foretold many things pursuant to Israel. Over that 24 years, I have never been wrong. I'm not wrong now. I'm always guided by the prophets, and the prophets have explained exactly what I'm going to share with you. So God is not causing this to happen. What he writes through his prophets is future history. He's telling us what we do. And when Trump was elected president, I began to tabulate all of the clues that he was providing, that he was going to do this very thing. And before he was inaugurated, he provided the first of them. And I will share some 25 very poignant clues with you that affirmed that Trump was going to do this and that it was going to happen now. And that is what we're witnessing. So that is the purpose of this special episode of the Yahowah blog. It's called Betraying Israel. Now, we live in a time where people who are political and they stumble upon something that is critical of the person that they have placed their faith in. In the case of the MAGAs, Donald Trump. And anytime they hear something that is inconsistent with their glorification of a man they think is God sent, they automatically assume that the person making the criticism is either a Democrat, a liberal, progressive, or some such thing. Long ago, when I was political, I'm now apolitical because I was apolitical. I'm a commentator on politics, not a participant in politics, even though I know more high-ranking politicians than probably anyone that does a show of this nature. I've had them to my home. I've been in their homes. I know who they are. And over that time, I have gone from being conservative. I'm an advocate of free enterprise. I'm an advocate of free will and of free speech and of less government intrusion in our lives. So I'm actually too conservative in terms of my use of restricted government to be a Republican. But that means I'm the antithesis of a liberal. I think that big government is not only in direct opposition with what God has instructed us in his Torah, where he speaks out against human governance and talks specifically about how human governance is so hostile to our lives and controlling and warmongering. I would fall into the category of agreeing with Yahowah that less government is better than more government. So I am not a liberal. I speak to you as a person who dreaded the idea of Cackles, the progressive vice president with, I swear on Ice Q of sub 50, becoming president, because I thought it would be a great embarrassment to the United States, even though I knew that this next president would betray Israel. And it saddens me, it hurts me to know that that president is Donald Trump. But nonetheless, that is the truth, and we're going to deal with reality. So what I'm going to share with you now is some 25 essays that I have written over the last few weeks as I have analyzed all of the clues that have been provided that we're leading in this direction. I'm not going to reveal them in chronological order, but simply as a series of essays. The first of those comes from one that I wrote today, and it's called At What Price? At what price, Miss Alexander and Adam Bohler? Miss Alexander is the mother of the Jewish American IDF soldier that was released under very dubious circumstances today. And Adam Bohler is the man who negotiated on behalf of the United States, bypassing Israel directly with the Islamic terrorist organization, Hamas. So at what price, Miss Alexander and Adam Bohler? Eden Alexander volunteered as an American Jew to serve in the IDF. He remained on his base when he was authorized to leave. He did so to protect Israel. And now you have betrayed his sacrifice by assuring Israel's demise at the hands of two devils, Islamic Hamas and bribable Trump. According to Egypt, who overheard the negotiations, Bohler told Hamas, "Do this for Trump, and he will do something even better for you," as in Hamas, the Palestinians, these Islamic jihadists, the Jew-hating Muslims who perpetrated October 7th. Do this for Trump, and he will do something even better for you. One life to sacrifice a country. The gift is a Fakistanian state served up on a golden platter and a brand new Qatari Air Force One. While I did not include it in this essay, I will tell you that Eden is not coming home to Israel today. Well, he may have had a brief stop in Israel, but no, he's flying on to Qatar. He's going to shake the hand of the man who bankrolled his abduction and his torture under Hamas captivity, the Emir of Qatar. And he's going to shake the hand of Donald Trump, who betrayed his sacrifice and his service to protect Israel. He has become a political pawn in a very sick and tragic, vile game. I also wrote this essay today. I wrote it because there are two people in particular on X, which is a cesspool of anti-Semitism. It's a cesspool of MAGA idiocy. It's a cesspool of progressive stupidity. It is a cesspool of conspiratorial, utter stupidity. It is my least favorite place on the planet. I do participate in it. Occasionally we have productive days. Today, a number of pro-Israeli groups decided to bond together and work together against the overt algorithms of X. X is exceedingly anti-Semitic, very hostile to Israel. And the reasons are that Elon Musk accepted enormous amounts of money from the Saudi royal family to finance his purchase of Twitter, now X. He has subsequently received additional financing from Qatari, the Qatari Bank of Terror, to finance X. And he has formed most recently a new holding company to transfer the faulty programmed Grok, the not so intelligent artificial intelligence of X that is predisposed to be a propagandist on behalf of of Muslims uh, to a new investment where the lead investor is a member of the Saudi royal family. And this is why anything that is said that is pro-Israel or anti-Islam is throttled on X. So it is a frustrating experience for all of us, which is why I greatly prefer Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, who is Jewish, when he called off the thought police on Facebook and created a much more supportive home for us to reside in, an online place for us to communicate Yahowah's message, we are quite grateful because it is vastly superior to the cesspool that is X. So I wrote to the followers, allies, friends, and supporters of Israel, and particularly to two individuals that have hundreds of thousands of followers on X. One would be Vivid, and the other one is Cheryl E. You may be familiar with them. And what I wrote is, are you ready to listen now? Everything I have told you about Trump and Israel has turned out to be true. Beginning in the first week of November last year, when I announced that Donald Trump would be the next Neville Chamberlain and that his Czechoslovakia would be Israel. I even produced 20 examples, itemized them in a list to prove the point, and offered an exacting timeline, affirming that it would occur on or before Shabuah at the outset of the time of Jacob's troubles, 22 May 2026. All along, I have sought to awaken everyone, and particularly the two of you, to this reality, because I want Yehudim and Israelites to be part of the ultimate and lone remaining viable solution for Israel. I know your future because I've studied the prophets and I speak for them. And together, we can make it much better for many Jews. And while I'm going to prevail independent of you, because of Yahowah's direct involvement, more Yehudim will be spared if you and your closest and most vocal supporters contribute. Please read Goddamn Religion. Now, this is volume 3 of 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion. Each volume is 825 pages, which is the maximum length that's available for print and paperback at Amazon. I have written all 5 of these volumes based upon my original work, which was called Prophet of Doom, Islam's Terrorist Dogma in Muhammad's Own Words. That book at the time was the most comprehensive, chronological, contextual, and best documented presentation of the Quran, reordered in chronological order and set into the context of Muhammad's life through the 5 most credible hadith sources. The Islamic Sunnah is what they comprise. And as a result, I created an inarguable case against Allah, Muhammad, Islam, the Quran, the Sunnah, and the Hadith. They are despicable. Islam is a death cult. And these books now, the rewrite of Prophet of Doom, which was 1 volume, are now 5 volumes, 4,200 pages, comprised of evidence and reason to prove that Islam has been at war with Jews and all mankind since its inception 1,400 years ago. And because the book is based entirely on the Islamic scriptures, the 5 most credible, oldest, and authentic sources of information about Islam's formation, Muhammad's despicable life, Allah's horrible book, it's inarguable. It is the great answer on behalf of Israel, so that you know you are not going to be successful if you continue to lash out at a symptom of Islam, as in Hamas, a symptom of Islam, as in Hezbollah, a symptom of Islam, as in Islamic Jihad, a symptom of Islam, as the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, a symptom of Islam, as in Iran, or you try to partner with the heart and soul of Islam in Saudi Arabia, you have no chance of being successful if you continue that approach. On the morning of October 7th in 2023, that morning, in Volume 1 of Goddamn Religion, I wrote an open letter to Israel called At War with Religion, which I told Israel that if you invade Gaza to wipe out Hamas, as I anticipated Israel was going to do, then you will make a bad situation worse. You will not only turn the world against you, which is what Israel has done, but you will manufacture more Islamic terrorists than you kill, which is precisely what has occurred. There are more Islamic jihadists in Gaza now than there were before the IDF entered to destroy them. The goals of the war are not achievable. I don't have an issue with trying to hold Hamas and Islamic Jihad accountable for the horrors they perpetrated on 10/7. That's not my issue. I don't really care about the lives of the Muslims who inspired 10/7, who perpetrated 10/7, who abducted the Israelis, raped them, murdered them on 10/7, who brought them back to parades in Gaza on 10/7, and who subsequently tortured them in captivity. They do not deserve any mercy or consideration. That's just simply the truth. It's cause and consequence. You do this kind of thing, you inspire it, you tell your children that the best calling in their life is to go off and kill Jews and be rewarded with virgins in heaven if they go off and kill and rape Jews, and they treat Jews as if they weren't even human, and you invade their country to do this, then you deserve what happens. Now, that said, what I care about is Israel, and I knew that with the IDF going into Gaza, the IDF would lose more additional sons and daughters in perpetrating this invasion of Gaza than the number of hostages. It would be counterproductive. They would lose more lives than they're capable of saving. I also knew that they would turn the world against Israel. And that is alarming, because what it did is it took anti-Semitism, which was boiling right below the surface, and it brought it to a great roar around the world. Anti-Semitism now, hatred of Israel, is at a level that is unprecedented, far, far beyond what occurred in 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s Europe. Way beyond that. That rather than 60 million Germans and related foes that were attacking and hunting down Jews, you now have 2 billion Muslims, and they have 1 billion progressives as their pimps. This is a horrible time for Israel, and you've made it worse with the bombing of Gaza. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's exactly what I told you was going to happen, and it did. And at that time, you need to know that I also knew that you would manufacture more Islamic jihadists than you killed, and that's exactly what has happened. But beyond that, I laid out a 5-point plan that if Israel had followed that plan, none of this would have happened. So I'm not speaking to you as one who didn't have an alternative. I did, and you're welcome to consider it. It's called At War with Religion. It's a very long chapter. I believe it's the 3rd chapter of Volume 1 of Goddamn Religion. You can go to goddamnreligion.org or you can go to yadayah.com. You'll find the books in either place. And plus, in the Yahowah blog, I have actually presented that open letter. So therefore, I am uniquely qualified to deliver this message, because for having written Goddamn Religion, I have received countless thousands of death threats. So I have some skin in the game. I also wrote the 5 volumes of Twistianity, of which this is one of those 5 volumes. That is important because Twistianity is the religion that was conceived to rob Israel of its Messiah, of the Son of God, of the returning King, of its Savior, Dowd, who is the one who was counterfeited by Paul and Peter and Mark and Luke to create the myth of Jesus, specifically to rob Jews of everything. They would even blame Jews in the Christian New Testament for killing their man God, and even for crucifying him, which of course Jews had no authority to do in first century Judea. But they did so to demonize and dehumanize Jews so they could justify robbing Jews and Israel of all of the promises Yahweh has made to you. And it has become a religion that has hounded and prosecuted Jews, abused Jews for 1,800 years. And it's important to know that I have your back on this, that I've not only reintroduced your actual Messiah and the Son of God so that you can reunite with Dowd and Yahweh your God, but also have exposed and condemned the fraud that has caused so much anti-Semitism for so very long, so that you know the truth about the Christian New Testament and its fraudulent portrayal of the myth of Jesus Christ, who is a crude counterfeit of Dowd, a product of identity theft. In addition to those books, I have written another 25 under the title Yahowah, something that Yahweh himself collaborated on and endorses. This happens to be Katsir Harvest, which speaks of the upcoming harvests of Shabuah and Teruah, and this very timeline that I've spoken to you about in this program is part of that. Those books take the oldest extant copies of Yahweh's Torah and prophets, his Dowd's Mizmor, as they're presented in the Dead Sea Scrolls, remove the rabbinical influence with their diacritical markings, and then render the text in an amplified fashion that is far more complete and accurate than ever before. And I even provide the operative Hebrew word throughout these translations within parentheticals so that you can look them up and validate and verify that according to the lexicons of the original language that was written to comprise these books, that they are accurate. And as a result, I have received tens of thousands of profound insights about who God is, what he's offering, what he's expecting in return from his name to your Savior and Dowd, that are unheralded, never shared previously. And I would invite you to read them. They're all at yahowah.com, all free. So I don't come to you without prior effort. I've been doing this every waking hour now for 24 years. I've invested over 100,000 hours in the pursuit of the protection and salvation of God's people. You are also invited to listen to the Yahowah blog. You will find it on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Rumble. So I continued in this post to Vivid and to Cheryl E., two very bold lions on behalf of God's people, of Yisrael. And I said further, I want you to know that many well-intentioned people are hindered on X, and they're very frustrated at this time, because Elon Musk took Saudi and Qatari money too, not just Trump. Grok is an Islamic propagandist with faulty programming, incapable of learning. The algorithms on X are conducive to Muslims, to progressives, to conspiracy nuts, to MAGAites, and swamp-dwelling crazies. But they're not for those of us who support Jews, Israel, or the God of Yisrael, who is both anti-religious and apolitical. Like Yahweh, whom I serve, I too am apolitical. I don't care 2 shekels about MAGA or progressives on either side, but I love Israel, and I've devoted my life to awakening and protecting Jews and Israelites, such that they come to know and respect Yahweh and Dode, and to keep the chosen people safe from religion and political foes. While many of you may still be unaware of the Goy of whom the prophet spoke, particularly the Nachri, the Choder, the Bashar, the Adamah Parah, the Zehbo Men Edom, who restores and saves many Yehudim and the remnant of Yisrael. But as that individual, I will continue to work with Yahweh, Dode, Eliah, and Yashayah and his covenant family to restore Israel's relationship in advance of their return on Yom Kippurim, 2 October, sunset in Jerusalem, 2033, which is year 6000 Yah. After 3,000 years of denial, I am the first to recognize, prove, and proclaim that Dode is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is the returning King who fulfilled Pesach and Matzah, leading to Bikurim in 33 CE, which was year 4000 Yah. Dode is our Yatzah, Savior. Having told Daniel, as Gabriel, God's most capable and competent man, the exact day that he would arrive to fulfill Chag Matzah, and then providing an eyewitness account of his own crucifixion in Daniel 9 and Psalm 22. Yahweh confirmed all of this in the 89th Mizmor, which is a song that he wrote the lyrics to extol the virtues of his beloved Son, our Messiah and King. The Christian Jesus is nothing more than a myth, existing as a crude counterfeit via identity theft, along with a heavy dose of pagan ideology through Dionysus. But this is your answer. This is the path to freedom and life. Please take the time to know it, understand it, embrace it, and share it. There is yet another article that I will share with you as part of this episode, the first of several, on betraying Israel as part of the Yahowah blog. And on this article, I wrote this also today. Islam is destructive. It is deadly. It is demonic. It is deceitful, and it is damning. Please shed your ignorance of this diabolical death cult by reading Goddamn Religion. Don't be a fool like Trump and Witkoff. This is a first-hand eyewitness account of the consequence of tolerating and accommodating Islam. And the account that I introduced in this case was an excerpt from Time magazine. It speaks of 2 recently released hostages and of their experience under the torturous hands of Gazan Muslims. I want to share that with you because I want you to know precisely who Donald Trump is rewarding with the terrorist state carved out of the heart of Israel. It begins, they tortured us for fun. Sometimes they would light pieces of paper on fire to suck up the small amount of oxygen from the tunnel. We would choke and have to lie on the floor to avoid suffocating. Tal Shloham wrote for Time magazine. Some mornings, I'd wake up and forget for a split second think that I'm free. And then I'd remember the silence, the darkness, the wet concrete, and the 2 young men who were lying beside me deep underground, who were still there. Their names are Eviatar, David, and Guy Daal. They were held together along with Omer Wincott, for 8.5 months in a Hamas tunnel. Just 40 feet long, less than 3 feet wide. We slept on soaked mattresses, shared a single pita a day, and took turns whispering stories from home to keep ourselves sane. We were strangers when we entered that darkness. We became brothers. Time feels different now. I carry it more carefully because I know how quickly time can run out. And for Israel, yours is running out very soon. Please respond. I know now how brutal each passing day is for those still living in captivity. I spent 505 days as a hostage, held deep beneath the ground. We were watched constantly by a surveillance camera. A bomb was planted above us, rigged to detonate if Israeli forces came too close. We were told we'd be blown up if anyone tried to save us. We were threatened, we were degraded, and at times we were tortured. We were never treated as people, but as objects to be controlled and broken. I'll interrupt his story for a moment to say, this is Islam. This is the Islam of the Quran. This is the Islam of Allah. This is the Islam of Muhammad. Muhammad tortured Jews. Allah spends all of his time in hell torturing those who do not capitulate. Jews are presented in the Quran as subhumans. This is Islam. I want you to read goddamn religion. I want you to know that what you're reading here is not a function of Hamas. It is a function of Islam. It is Quranic for Muslims to act this way. That is why there was no kindness ever shown by any Gazan Muslim at any time to any of the Jewish abductees who were held hostage. He wrote, I'm not a soldier. I was kidnapped on October 7th from my in-laws' home in the kibbutz Beri, a farming community. My wife and children were with me. The terrorists, I don't know why, Jews can't say Muslims. But if you can't describe them as Muslims, you have no chance to prevail over them. Terrorism is simply a tactic. It isn't an identity. But he wrote to the terrorists, couldn't break the door of our safe room. They entered through the window. They dragged me out, threw me into a truck, and then actually a trunk. And then they paraded me through the streets of Gaza. For 50 agonizing days after that, I did not know if my family had survived. Eviatar and Guy, both 22 years old, had been taken from the Nova Music Festival. Their friends were slaughtered all around them. By the time we met in captivity, they were in terrible shape, starved, handcuffed, terrorized. I'll interrupt again to say, these are the people that Donald Trump intends to leave in power. He wants the war to end. He doesn't care if they give up their arms or not. These are the people that he is now established a foundation to aid and abet. These are the people that his great gift to them will be a terrorist state carved out of Israel that they will control. And yet that is what these people did to Jews. It is the most horrifying betrayal of the most important people on our planet that has ever been perpetrated by anyone, making Donald Trump the most despicable man who has ever lived. For weeks, they'd been fed almost nothing. Their hands were bound behind their backs. Their ankles were tied. Their heads were covered with plastic bags. But somehow they managed They still had some spirit. During those last 8.5 months we spent together in the tunnel, they held on. The men who held us didn't see us as human. No, because they're Muslims. I added that part. He didn't say it. They tortured us for fun. Sometimes they would light, as he's now including this statement in the heart of his article for Time magazine. Sometimes they would light the pieces of paper on fire and suck out the oxygen in the room. We had to dive to the floor to avoid suffocating. We came up with daily rituals to remember who we were. In a place built to break us, we held each other up. We became a unit. We became family. When I walked out of that tunnel in February, I made a vow I would speak for those who can't. 59 hostages, only 20 some odd of them remain alive. And he writes Hamas captivity, it's Islamic captivity. And every day that passes makes it harder for them to survive. And I will tell you this, and it's important for you to know. When Israel made the recovery of the hostages its prime objective, they committed suicide. It's that simple. Islam declared war on you 1,400 years ago. They perpetrated genocide on Jews and apartheid on Jews and the world for all 1,400 years. To do a deal with these savages is to slit your own wrists. The only way to win this war is to recognize that you cannot reward the Muslims for acting this way, because all you will do is cause far more Jews to die in the future than you save by your antics now. Every Jew's life is indeed precious, but the moment they outwitted the IDF and the Israeli government and the Mossad and the Shin Bet and perpetrated Alaska flood on 10/7, the moment Israel prioritized the return of the hostages as opposed to the salvation of Israel, they lost this war. The last sentence of the article reads, the Muslims who abducted them, held them in captivity and tortured them. Oh no, it's not his art. His statement ended. It's now mine. The Muslims who abducted these Jews, who held them in captivity and tortured them, are now the same Muslims that Donald Trump has decided to reward by giving them a state they carved, that will be carved out of the heart of Israel. I'm going to share one more article with you, and then we'll conclude this episode of the Yahowah blog, The Betrayal of Israel. It is written as an open post to my beloved Jews. Gazan Muslims with average IQs in the 60s played Israeli Jews with IQs in the 115 range readily and easily. Israel has been averse to the truth since they stopped listening to Yahowah during the Exodus and turned against both God and Moshe. And this needs to change now if Israel's going to survive. You need to forget the hostages. You should have done so at the beginning. They never could be saved without sacrificing the nation. When you operate with this rather than this, when your very existence is at peril, you play right into the hands of those who would annihilate you. This is the reality of war. And Islam has been at war with Jews for 1,400 years. And yet Jews are fixated on symptoms like Hamas and Hezbollah, thereby making a bad situation far worse. And because Jews sought revenge against a symptom rather than fighting the actual disease, they have become vulnerable by prioritizing the hostages over the salvation of the Jewish people. A horrible calamity is poised to fall upon Israel, one that was foretold in Yahowah 2,700 years ago. Because of the capitulation of Israel allowing the Muslims to play them for fools, because they prioritized their heart over their head, the next Alaska flood will be comprised of between 100 and 1,000 times more jihadists. The IDF will be equally inept. Millions of Jews are going to die. That's the reality. That's the consequence of allowing Muslims to take advantage of you this way. My advice is to stop trying to diagnose the systems and to pretend like you're winning this war, and to start dealing with the actual problem. It's the attitude of Israelis towards Yahowah and Dowd. It's their inability to deal with the fact that their enemy is religious. It's time to mend the relationship with God and the king if you want a solution. And then it's time to recognize you can only prevail in your present plight if you realize that you're at war with Islam. Please think about these things for your sake. Now, this is the conclusion of this, the first of several episodes of the betrayal of Israel. And I am the host of the Yahowah blog, Craig Wynn.